Miami Hurricanes transfer portal just went from 0 to 60 here on a Saturday night. We got 3 new Canes. Linebacker Kamal Bonner, kicker Bert Auburn, wide receiver Keelan Marion. Welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I'll admit, like a lot of you out there, I was starting to get a little impatient seeing so many transfer players land at other spots, including some players Miami was reportedly interested in, like Trevor Pena, who committed this week to Penn State. I was starting to get impatient. What's going on in Miami? Are we slow playing all these guys? Miami ever going to land a transfer? And then they just start coming off the board back to back to back on a Saturday evening. And I don't believe the Hurricanes are done, by the way. More transfers will be added. We'll speculate onto who they might be because even though April 25th was the deadline for players to get in the portal, that just means the deadline to file their paperwork. That was not the deadline to sign players. That can keep going on essentially indefinitely, although most of the guys who sign will probably sign at some point, early to mid-May at the absolute latest. So, yeah, on this loaded episode of Locked On Canes, I am Alex Donno, by the way. Thank you so much for making us your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will talk Miami in the NFL draft. You had 7 players drafted from Thursday through Saturday. A notable, I thought, snub, Xavier Restrepo. But I'll say, for going undrafted, you couldn't do any better than he did because X gets to reunite with, his best friend on the team this past season. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about the new transfer portal additions for Miami. So, yeah, you had back-to-back-to-back additions, 3 at a time coming down. I mean, that wasn't a 2-for-1. That was a 3-for-1. So the first transfer to land late afternoon on Saturday was NC State transfer linebacker Kamal Bonner. Second one to come off the board was Texas kicker Bert Auburn. And then last but certainly not least, BYU wide receiver and electric kick returner Keelan Marion. All right, let's talk about Kamal Bonner first. Linebacker from North Carolina State. He's got 3 years of eligibility left, and he ended up getting quite a bit of playing time, specifically second half of the season last year as a redshirt freshman because there were some injuries in the NC State linebacker core, and Kamal Bonner got an opportunity to play and shine. He recorded at least 6 tackles in the 7 games that he played in last year, finished the season with 56 total tackles and a sack last year. And, Kamal Bonner, something Miami surely, a couple things that Miami values about Bonner, his speed and explosiveness, and also his positional versatility. He can play Will linebacker, he can play Sam linebacker, he can play Mike linebacker, and he comes in 6'2", 215 pounds. So this, my understanding, he really enjoyed his visit to Miami, and the Miami powers that be and the coaches really appreciated talking to Bonner. And Bonner really, he mentioned Miami's culture is something that stood out to him, and he sees a clear plan from his coaches. Remember, Corey Heatherman, Miami's new defensive coordinator, is also the linebackers coach, and he can really see a clear plan for the ways he can benefit Miami and the way that Bonner is going to be used at Miami. There's also a connection to Miami's roster. We talked about this a little bit the other day on Locked On Canes. Bonner went to Colquitt County High School in Georgia, same high school that Miami receiver Nye Carr went to. And Carr, remember, was in the transfer portal, and then he decided to exit the portal and stay in Miami. And he and Kamal Bonner were just 1 year apart in high school. They're really good friends. So I've got a feeling that, Nye Carr probably had something to do with Bonner coming to Miami, and maybe Bonner had something to do with Carr deciding to stay at Miami after putting his name into the transfer portal. So I view Bonner as someone, and I don't hand starting jobs to anybody, especially until we've actually kind of seen them practice and see what's going on. But he can definitely push the top linebackers in Miami's room when it comes to playing time, potentially competing for starting jobs. The top two guys in Miami's linebacker core have been Wesley Besaint and Raul Popo Aguirre. Chase Smith also had a good spring. You like what you see as well from Cameron Bobby Pruitt, who's got some speed and explosiveness. Kellen Wiley, the true freshman linebacker, did really well for an early enrollee freshman. But Kamal Bonner can come in, can compete with that group, can push that group, and I would not rule out him winning a starting job. This is a player we're excited about, and I talked a little bit the other day with my guy Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack, who's a former NC State defensive lineman. He hosts Locked On Wolfpack as well. He keeps his eyes on that program, and he's a fan of Kamal Bonner when it comes to his run stopping ability and his tackling. Said he needs to work on his coverage a little bit. So hopefully that's something that'll come with more seasoning in his game with his 3 years of eligibility remaining. So next up for Miami was kicker Bert Auburn, former Texas Longhorns kicker. Now, I see some of the reactions from Miami fans to this edition because, a lot of you, if you're aware of Bert Auburn, you probably saw him late last season, SEC championship game postseason. You saw him missing some big kicks. He ended his time at Texas with a bad case of the yips. He missed 6 field goals in his final 5 games with the Longhorns. So he ended his time there on a cold streak. And I see some Miami fans like, oh, what are we doing? This is terrible. It's going to make our team worse adding this guy. Well, okay. You have to hope that this man can return to his 2023 form. He didn't overall have a terrible year last year, but a bad, final handful of games. But in 2023, he went 29 for 35, was perfect from 30 to 39 yards at 10 for 10, was 9 of 12 from 40 to 49 yards, 2 for 4 from 50 plus, had a long of 54 yards in 2023. In 2024, he went 6 for 12 from 40 to 49 yards, 0 for 2 from 50 plus. Perfect 6 for 6 last year from 20 to 29, 4 for 5 from 30 to 39. But here's the thing, hopefully Bert Auburn, who, again, a lot of kicking is mental, so he needs to, bounce back from those issues late in the year last year. If any Miami fans are complaining about this edition, I get it. We were really, really spoiled for the last 5 years. A year from Jose Borregales and 5 years from now New England Patriot kicker Adam Vinatieri 2.0 coming up, Andy Borregales. That's 5 years. 5 years of Borregales spoiling us. So is Bert Auburn Andy Borregales or Jose Borregales? No, he doesn't have those percentages being that high and those stats and everything. But, guys, he's better than Miami's other options when it comes to being a place kicker. Experienced guy, 1 year of eligibility left. Miami lost, young place kicker Abram Murray into the transfer portal. But, Murray was, what I understand, not accurate in practice. And Miami does have another scholarship kicker, but I believe a kickoff specialist, Carter Davis, who doesn't have a good career field goal percentage, but he's got the big leg for kickoffs. So, didn't have a better option on the roster than Bert Auburn. And so, I know this man is a capable kicker. Hopefully he's able to bounce back mentally from the end of the year last year. He's better than what Miami had, assuming we couldn't, find an extra year of eligibility somewhere for a Borregales. That's just not to be had. So the Auburn edition, I think, is important. And when we come back, I want to talk about what might have been the most significant addition of the night when it comes to the receiver and the kick returner that Miami just added. Let's have a chat about Keelan Marion, because this man is going to make the Miami Hurricanes offense better in 2025. Of that, I have zero doubt. Keep it locked right here. I already know you're keeping it locked to Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts From 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Do you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. 3 new Miami Hurricanes through the transfer portal. NC State linebacker Kamal Bonner. Texas kicker Bert Auburn. I'm saving this one for last. BYU wide receiver and kick returner Keelan Marion. 2 years of eligibility remaining. 6 foot tall, 195 pounds. And Marion this past season, I think what made him an extra sought after, transfer candidate is his wiggle, his vision on special teams, his explosiveness. He returned 2 kickoffs to the house for BYU last year. Had a 96-yarder and a 100-yard kickoff return touchdown this past season. This guy can provide game-changing plays for the Miami Hurricanes, and he's also a very capable wideout and a possible gadget guy. This is someone, Marion, that is going to give Miami offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson and certainly wide receivers coach Kevin Beard, opportunities to formulate creative ways to get Marion on and around the field. And I like having multiple guys like that. Miami has a tight end who can be a utility, and you hate to use the word gadget because that somehow that has gotten like a negative connotation from some people. So I don't mean this in a negative way, but you can plug him in so many different areas, right? I mean, Miami has a lot of that with Elijah Lofton at tight end. I think, someone like Malachi Toney and even a Nye Carr have abilities like that. And now Keelan Marion. So Marion this past season at BYU, 24 receptions, 346 yards. So he averaged 14.4 yards per grab, which is pretty good. And he scored a receiving touchdown. He also had 21 carries for 96 yards. You can line him up in the backfield or end arounds, jet sweeps. 21 carries for 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. He scored 3 rushing touchdowns the year prior to that. So, folks, we talk about being spoiled, right? I mean, so many of my formative years being a Miami fan, I got to watch special teams aces like Santana Moss returning punts and kicks, Roscoe Parrish, Devin Hester, the greatest of all time, Duke Johnson. I got to watch guys who were capable of making those game-changing special teams returns, and we haven't had that. I mean, what a great ace, up your sleeve it is to have someone who can, turn the game on its head with an explosive play on kickoffs. Miami just hasn't had that recently, and I believe Keelan Marion is not only going to add that, but he's also going to add a weapon to the receiving core. Miami, and he's an older guy. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. He's played significantly for 4 seasons, but one of those he took for 3 seasons, and he took a redshirt year. No, 4, I guess, because I don't know, the COVID year, whatever's going on here. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining, but he's got experience under his belt. He's been in college since the 2021 season, I believe. He started his collegiate career at UConn before transferring over to BYU. Between guys like CJ Daniels and JoJo Trader, and we mentioned the tight end room as well, a guy like Elijah Lofton, Malachi Toney, Ray Joseph, Nye Carr, Keelan Marion is going to have opportunities to compete, get on the field, and hopefully make some game-changing plays for the University of Miami. So new transfers that we're welcoming into the bunch. And, some other players that I would definitely keep an eye on. It seems like Miami's ready to start, landing commitments from transfer portal players now. I'll definitely be watching former Florida Gators safety Gregory Smith III, who recently visited Miami. And by the way, on Keelan Marion, a little backstory on that. He visited on Friday to Miami, and then he was supposed to go off somewhere else on Saturday to another visit, but he was enjoying Miami so much he stayed an extra day and, enjoyed it so much he ended up committing to Miami on Saturday night. So that was great. Miami also recently hosted Gregory Smith from Florida, a safety you want to keep an eye on. I'm cautiously optimistic that Miami can continue to make progress with AJ Hulsey, safety transfer from Houston, who's got connections with Zach Etheridge on Miami's staff. He also met with Ole Miss, and there's a little bit of LSU smoke as well for Hulsey. So Miami's battling some powers within the SEC for him. Hopefully we get some good news there. And, another Florida Gator, former Florida Gator, the defensive tackle DeAndre Robinson, who just, hit the portal like right before the deadline. Hopefully Miami can get some movement with him. And another player who hit the portal like right at the deadline that I would really like Miami to go after is another linebacker, right? And I like Kamal Bonner, but, I want as many good linebackers as possible. There's a former Rutgers linebacker, Mohamed Toure, who is a grad transfer, entered the portal. Team captain on Rutgers in 2023 when his linebackers coach was Corey Heatherman. Posted 93 tackles, 9.5 TFL, 4.5 sacks. He missed 2024 with a torn ACL. So this will be his comeback from injury, but I would assume, health-wise, he's good to go after missing an entire season. So that's one I would like Miami to go after. So we will continue to monitor the transfer portal. Meanwhile, I spent a lot of time, as most Americans did, for the past 72 hours watching and monitoring the 2025 NFL draft. And, I always have my disappointments to see, certain players that I hoped would get selected go undrafted. Unfortunately, it happens to us every single season, but Miami had 7 players selected. Let me shout them out and say, I could not be more proud of these guys. And a few of them I wished were drafted higher than they were, but you can't say that about Cam Ward because you couldn't have been taken higher than number 1 overall. What a story. What a journey. 0-star recruit 5 years ago out of high school to Heisman Trophy finalist a few months ago, number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Probably the hardest working player I've ever covered. Cam Ward eats, drinks, sleeps football. He has no nightlife. He has no hobbies except maybe for fishing. But I'm sure when he's fishing, he's probably watching film like at the same time. Like he is so driven and so hardworking to go along with all the amazing physical tools that he has. The Tennessee Titans got themselves a great one at number 1 overall, no doubt. Elijah Arroyo to the Seattle Seahawks, the 2nd round, 50th overall. Seahawks, by the way, I see you, Seattle, drafted multiple Canes. And I see you, New York Jets. New York Jets drafted multiple Canes as well. I got no love for the Jets, being a lifelong Dolphin fan. But, I respect the fact that they're giving when Chris Greer, the Dolphins GM, when he sees a Miami player on the board, he's like, no, I'll pass. Find me the guy with the longest injury history. I'll draft him over any Miami players, usually the modus operandi for Chris Greer. But Elijah Arroyo goes in the 2nd round to the Seattle Seahawks. And then we had a gap for a few rounds. Jalen Rivers, former Miami starting left tackle, goes 153rd overall, 5th round to the Cincinnati Bengals. I love that for Jalen. And you talk about positional versatility. He can play either tackle spot, either guard spot, could probably play center if you really needed him to. He's just such a professional and such a good player. I was happy to see Kiko Maui Noah get taken 5th round. New York Jets got themselves a good one. I know, Kiko unfortunately didn't seem to have not as good of a year in 2024 as he had in 2023. I'm going to blame Lance Guidry for that, Miami's former defensive coordinator. I know Kiko can bounce back in the league. The New York Jets also drafted Tyler Barron, Miami edge rusher. He goes 5th round, 176th overall. So the New York Jets were taking him off the board. Andy Borregales, right? I already sung his praises, one of the great kickers in Miami history. He goes 6th round to the New England Patriots, 182nd overall. Dare I say this will be the best 6th round pick New England has ever made. You get it? That was bad. I'm sorry. I might edit that out of the podcast. But you know what I'm saying? Best 6th round pick in New England Patriots history. If I was in your living room right now, you'd be throwing tomatoes at me for that terrible joke. But you know what I'm saying? The Seattle Seahawks in the 7th round, they got their second Cane. Damian Martinez, 223rd overall to Seattle. Thank you, Seahawks. And by the way, Martinez, I felt like he should have been drafted before the 7th round, but he's got a little bit of Marshawn Lynch in his game. So doesn't it feel like the Seahawks are a good spot for Damian Martinez? So those were the 7 Miami players drafted. I know there's like moving parts with guys, getting signings, undrafted free agent, but the most high profile of those, I want to send my sincerest compliments and also my sympathy to Xavier Restrepo. It's such a weird, like, I feel like I'm being ripped in two directions, because in one direction, I'm angry on X's behalf. Xavier Restrepo, most prolific receiver in Miami Hurricanes history, career records, greatest Miami Hurricanes receiver, at least most stats of all time in a Miami uniform, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 11 touchdowns last year, 16.3 yards per catch. But, unfortunately for X, and again, I think he's going to overplay his undrafted. He's going to make that team, Tennessee Titans, sign him, right? So I feel terrible that he went undrafted, because X deserved to be drafted. I think people are overreacting to the slow 40 time, because the tape does not lie. That man can play. So on the one hand, I'm angry that X didn't get drafted, because he should have, and I feel for him. But on the other hand, if you're going to go undrafted, he could not have possibly found a better landing spot than Tennessee. He gets to reunite with Cam Ward. Like, Restrepo and Ward, again, combining for over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdown catches last year. I could see their chemistry together from Ward's very first spring practice. Like, he and Restrepo, they looked like they'd been playing together for years, and that's what we experienced last season at Miami. So, and also for Restrepo to be able to learn in Tennessee, and I'm assuming he's going to make the team. He's going to make the team. To be able to learn from Tyler Lockett for a little while before, and I think X could find his ways on the field, but to be able to play behind someone like Tyler Lockett, who's an amazing receiver in his own right, I think that's a really good spot for Restrepo, and being with Cam Ward. So, undrafted, it's not fair. It sucks. But that landing spot, I mean, I was hoping the Titans would draft Restrepo in the later rounds to reunite him with Cam, but they found a way to do it through the free agent market anyway. So congratulations to all our Canes that were drafted by the NFL or have found a soft landing somewhere. I'm going to root for you guys. Listen, man, I'm angering some of my close friends that are Dolphin fans. I've been a Dolphin fan 40 years. I'm 40 years old. So, you do the math. 100% of my life, I've been a Miami Dolphins fan, but I'm starting to feel like more and more of a Titans fan today. They already had James Williams. They got Cam Ward. They got Xavier Restrepo. Hashtag tighten up, man. I appreciate you guys for listening to and watching Locked On Canes. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your pods, and we'll talk to you again either tomorrow or Monday. I don't know if we'll do a Sunday episode. If Miami signs more transfers, we certainly will. If not, we'll talk to you Monday on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.